and it just continues from there. I asked Jason to come because I know that there's a lot of interest in this topic, but also that being on the front lines there, Jason could probably tell us some things that we're not reading in the papers as well. It's a continual battle, and it keeps morphing. It keeps taking different shapes, but they're the ones who are protecting our essential workers. So without further ado, I will turn the program over to Jason Chung. Jason.
Hey, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you reaching out to me and allowing me to talk on this topic. We've been dealing with quite a bit, and I want to start off by saying that I have missed being going to the club meetings. I've been pretty busy this last couple of months, and some of you may not recognize me because some of this hair might have fallen out. So I've been going through quite a bit, but I do intend, when things slow down, to be a regular at the meetings again. And of course, I think I shared with some of you that I had my second child in early March, but right before the COVID pandemic really took foot. So of course, my daughter is here, and the sad part about this whole thing is not all of our family has been able to meet her yet, but of course, through technology and these Zoom meetings and things like that, they've been able to see her, and of course the Facebook posts and stuff like that. So, but when all this dies down, hopefully we'll resume our regular meetings, and I'll be able to attend most of the functions again. But for now, I want to give you guys just an update about what's happening on the front lines. And like Chris said, we not only represent grocery store workers and drugstore workers, but also the clinical lab scientists at Kaiser and the pharmacy workers and the assistants and technicians. Also, I'm sure you guys have heard on the news, the meatpacking plants, right? That's been on the news quite a bit. And so across the U.S., we have about 1.4 million members, and they're experiencing a whole slew of things that they've never thought they would ever encounter in the jobs that they took. So, but let me start off by saying, Sam, thank you for hosting us today. We were in the City of Industry, partnering with Hilda Solis, and also the City of Industry and the Los Angeles Federation of Labor, and also the LA Food Bank. We were there this morning distributing frozen goods and produce and meat products to, I think, 2,000 families today. And we're always proud to do that kind of work. Here at the local, our motto is building better communities. And certainly, you know that the need for food and food insecurity is high right now. So we wanted to play a part in helping satisfy that appetite. And Sam, thank you for having us over there again. We've done at least 4 or 5 of these large ones in the city of Baldwin Park, and also in Azusa. And of course, here in Claremont, we have our own food pantry too. Before we get into all the other stuff about the frontline workers, I want to extend something to everybody on this call, that here at Local 1428, we do have a fully functioning food pantry. So if you guys know anybody who is in need in the area, please send them to our office, okay? I'll share perhaps with Chris and Sam my office number, and all they would have to do is call to arrange an appointment for a pickup. And what we give out is very comprehensive. It can last them for months, or a month at a time. So we want to make sure that if you guys know anybody, please don't hesitate and use this as a resource during this time, okay? And I guess I can get you that information after this call, and we can email it out, or I can have Chris send it out. So always remember that. I want to talk about the beginning part of this COVID pandemic and what took place in our stores and with our retail locations and the members. Of course, you guys all know that in March, there was a huge rush on all the food stores and all the drug stores. and many of the members were caught in the front lines, but they were also caught without any of the proper protective equipment. And of course, we know that the CDC's recommendations on how to protect yourself have changed and evolved as we're learning more about COVID-19. So in the beginning, it was thought that it was an aerosol form, but then it changed to a droplet form. And then also, we know that the masks and the gloves and sanitizer and disinfectants were pretty much you were hoarding gold if you had any of these products. So they were not readily available to any of our members out there. So they experienced this large rush on the food supply, and of course that's when everybody was panic buying and hoarding at their houses. Our members were right smack in the middle of all these things, and they dealt with the brunt of the public coming into their workspaces and not being protected. So of course, as we learn more about how COVID was transmitted, the union here, UFCW, and our international union pressed hard to have our safety recommendations put into practice. And we had to leverage a lot of these companies into doing the right thing. And I want to share with everybody on the call that it was a struggle with some of these employers to do the right thing. So Chris mentioned earlier that the simple things that our members took it upon themselves to protect themselves, like the 6-foot social distancing on the ground. A lot of our members were actually out there putting tape on the ground themselves without being prompted by their management team to protect their coworkers, right? They were enforcing it themselves. They were bringing masks from their own stash at home. They were bringing gloves from their own stash at home. They were sharing with each other that hand sanitizer and things like that. So some of the very basic things we asked for were those very things. And slowly the companies agreed one at a time to implement these things and to share best practices with each other. And that's why now when you go into our grocery stores or our drugstores, you see the curtains, the plastic curtains or the plexiglass put up, and you see all those markings on the ground to stand 6 feet apart. You also have limitations of how many people could actually be inside the store at one time. There's also new rules to monitor the employees when they come to work. They are asked a series of questions. Are you experiencing a fever today? Do you have diarrhea? Do you have a cough? Do you have a running nose? And at that point, they're turned away and sent home. And UFCW, the priority is we never want to have anyone have to make the decision to put food on their table and to go into work when they're sick, or if they knew that they had some kind of safety net or some kind of pay that they can do the right thing, report into work that they were sick, and still not suffer any financial loss. So as part of our bargaining process with these companies, we asked that an extra sick time be implemented specifically for COVID. So all the companies implemented a 14-day extra sick time for anyone who was COVID positive, suspected of having COVID, or quarantined due to COVID. And that's part of one of the major victories that we won during this battle to protect our workers. And in fact, it's been used quite a bit. I have something to report to everybody that's a little disheartening, but I need everybody to know, because just as of this last week, in the Glendora area and in the Upland area, there has been positive cases. So we don't want to ever have anybody let their guard down. And I want to share this with you because I get the calls when our members test positive and our members are looking for what their rights are and what their benefits are. So just know that it's still an ongoing issue. It's not going away anytime soon. And in fact, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick with COVID positive members. That being said, let me share with you a couple of the numbers that we're experiencing nationwide as a union. So that way you guys get a little perspective. And of course, I covered with everybody the industries that we have contracts in. including the meat industry, pharmacy and food services, meat packing, healthcare workers, the folks that test for coronavirus. Those are our members as well, the clinical lab scientists and some of the Quest diagnostics across the country. So all in total, right now, confirmed deaths with UFCW members, we have about 225 confirmed deaths. And most of those, the majority of them are coming out of the meatpacking plants. And exposures and or positive cases, we're looking at about 29,000. And that's a tremendous number. That's just, those are our frontline essential workers that have tested positive or have been exposed. And that number to me is very staggering. The deaths, as I mentioned earlier, most of them have come from the meatpacking plants. And if you guys have been following the news, you know that here in our Vernon facility, the Farmer John factory, there has been an outbreak there in the facilities. And of course, I'm sure you've heard on the news that that President Trump used an executive order and invoked the Defense Production Act to classify the meatpacking plants as essential and have them to stay open. So let me just share with you the reality of what these folks go through on a day-to-day basis and the decisions they may have to make. When you're in a meatpacking plant, it's a very dangerous workplace, first off, to start off with. But you're working in close quarters with your coworkers, and sometimes it's shoulder to shoulder. And that's why we're seeing outbreaks of COVID-19 cases because of the proximity of the work that everybody does with each other. A lot of these folks that work in these plants, they tend to be folks who have immigrated to the U.S. and folks that don't necessarily believe, that have a lot at stake, and they have to make that decision every day whether or not they're going to collect a paycheck for their family that they're trying to support, or if they're going to hide the fact that they're sick and go into work and get a paycheck, or if they get sent home, their future's uncertain. And that's the unfortunate reality of it, where a lot of folks are choosing to go to work instead of being home getting better because they're going to lose their income. And so that's the reality of what those folks are facing. But just to put into perspective as well, I'm sure everybody would agree on this call that if you knew 60 of your coworkers are positive out of 240, and perhaps 10 of them have died already, you would be pretty hesitant to want to go to work, I'm sure, right? And so our international and our local unions have been doing everything they can to put into place all the protocols to keep them as safe as possible. But of course, our president, for whatever reason, wanted to put the supply chain ahead of our members' lives and has ordered them through an executive order to stay open. So it's unfortunate. I'm sure you guys have heard also of some of the other areas in Iowa. There has been a large outbreak. Some of the plants hit, the Smithfield plant, the JBS plant. So a lot of our food products like bacon and sausage and things like that, the plants have been hit hard. And that's the majority of where our fatalities have come from, and the majority of where our COVID positive cases have come out of. I want to share with you also that a lot of our members, what the international is going for politically to put into place to protect the workers is we want to have anybody who's passed due to COVID, of course, that they receive some kind of compensation. And so we're lobbying the federal government, we're lobbying each state to have this put into place to where as if you have died because you've contracted COVID-19, that you'll be compensated. Also to provide a cash benefit to anybody who is hospitalized due to a COVID-19 infection. Expand paid sick days and paid family leave benefits, of course. But we also want to have that access to rapid testing for these folks. That's one of our main priorities as a union, to be classified as a frontline worker and then to have access to rapid testing. And that would mitigate a lot of the damage and a lot of the spread that these packing plants are experiencing. Because if you were able to find out that there's a cluster of positive folks, then you can remove them from the situation, and hopefully the virus does not spread. Of course, here in California, the situation's a little different. We've had a lot of major victories, legislative-wise, and also with the governor's decree that if you are an essential worker, that if you test positive for COVID, that it's presumed that you got it from work. And this is major because now what that does is shifts all the burden of the cost for any kind of recovery or any kind of medical expenses or any kind of lost wages to the employer. And the company, as a rebuttal, can still ask, have you traveled outside the United States? Do you have a spouse or a loved one who is sick with COVID? Or do you practice social distancing? And do you practice all the CDC guidelines? And of course, our members, the answers are yes. They go to work, and they go home, they quarantine themselves, or they self-isolate. And so the presumption is that they got it from work. And that's major, because what that does is it gives the incentive to the employers to do the right thing, to push them to put up all those barriers, to put up all those extra safeguards, so that way our members are healthy at work. And our Western States Council are the folks who lobby the governor in Sacramento. They've done a really great job about it. And not only are union members benefiting from it, but also non-union members that are essential workers are benefiting from these laws. So we're on the forefront of getting all those things taken care of. And that was a major victory for the workers in California. And if you guys know, the workers in the other states, they don't have some of these generous benefits that we've won here in California, including the fact that they get extra sick time for if they test positive for COVID. So if you read about or hear about any of those other workers in those states, they don't have a lot of these protections. The presumption that they got it at work, I believe, is unique to California. I haven't heard of it anywhere else. Perhaps New York, but I'm not too certain. I'll have to look into that. But I know for California, we're very unique in that aspect. So some of the other things that we are pushing and have won for our members, we have partnered with LA County and also the mayor of LA to get testing for all of our frontline workers as essential workers. That means even if they're not symptomatic, they have access to a test. And all you have to do is go on the county's website to find the nearest location near you. And those members can now have the peace of mind to at least know that I can get tested. I can get tested for free. And of course, a negative result doesn't mean that you are in the clear either, but that you have to, at least at that moment, you are, you're fine. And then you can also go back again to get tested when necessary. So a lot of our members are facing a lot of things. Their children are at home from school, right? And they're also, they may have someone at their household that is in a high risk category. So they have a lot of anxiety. And I get those calls every day. What am I going to do? And imagine going into work every day, dealing with the public who may not necessarily agree to wear a mask, or the store's policy of wearing a mask inside the store. So they are facing sometimes very hostile customers. And of course, the anxiety of perhaps catching the illness and taking it home to your loved ones is a constant fear. And so there's high anxiety within those folks. And then the workload is never ending, and the days are very long for these folks. So what I would ask of this club is that if you guys are ever in the stores, to honor their hard work and to acknowledge that they're in danger, please wear a mask at all times. But also, it goes a long way to say, thank you for what you're doing. And, we know you're an essential worker, frontline worker, to acknowledge that. I promise you it'll mean everything to them. We were lucky enough to have a lot of our community partners join with us and to going into visiting the stores to thank the frontline workers, and including two of your fine city councilmen, Jed Liano and Ed Reese. They were able to go with us into the respective districts, into the stores that we have. And as a token of gratitude and to say thank you, they bought them pizza for lunch, and then also we're there to show support for the workers there. And it was met with great appreciation, and our members really enjoyed it. And we were able to partner with a lot of other local elected officials and to go into our stores. Of course, our jurisdiction rides from LA County, the east end of LA County, and also the west end of San Bernardino County. So some of our stores are in that area where the folks don't have to go in and wear a mask in San Bernardino. And that's a whole other ballgame there. They're dealing with a lot of issues with customers. You've probably seen on the news as well some of the interactions that they're having with everything from fights to just general overall unpleasantness, right? So if they're dealing with a lot of that, they also see the good side of it, right? And the folks who know what's happening and want to support. So I encourage you, when you are in any of these places, to just take a moment to acknowledge them and show that you are there with your mask to protect them and yourselves. So please do that. That's one of the asks that I'll have of everybody here. We want to cover a couple different topics too, because we know what's happening with the unfortunate tragedy of George Floyd's death, and what's happening with the struggle for equality for folks. And of course, our members were affected in this as well, because a lot of the protests, the peaceful protests that were happening, prompted a curfew, which shut our stores down. And there was a lot of anxiety over that as well, because of course there are always those bad actors that want to take advantage of the situation and perhaps vandalize or do damage to the stores. But of course, the majority of the folks were peaceful. And the only thing that happened out of this whole thing for our members was that the curfew shut down a lot of the stores earlier. And of course, our concern was that our members' safety first, but also that they were going to be compensated for any time lost due to any of these protests. And everybody at UFCW here, especially at 1428, of course, we put out a statement saying that we stand with Black Lives Matter, and we believe that there needs to be fundamental police reform on a lot of the tactics that they use, and et cetera, because this is happening way too often. And our members are of every race, color, creed, and so we fully support the Black Lives Matters protesters. Let me cover one other topic before I move on. I wanted to highlight some of the other things that we were able to get, because when you sign up for a grocery store job or a pharmacy job or a pharmacy store job, you never would picture yourself in this kind of harm's way. So what we were able to negotiate with these larger employers is an extra pay increase. And regardless of however they called it, appreciation pay or hazard pay, we were able to secure that for a lot of our members and their stores. And once we get one company to agree to the extra pay, then of course we leverage it with their competitors to do the same thing and do the right thing. And we've been able to push it through till the beginning of July for a lot of the employers like Albertsons and Vons and Stater Brothers. Some of them do a little bit other stuff like bonus payouts, CVS and Kroger. We've been able to push those employers to do the right thing, and we negotiate on behalf of our members to get those that extra pay. That being said, a lot of the companies, I'll share with you how they deal with negotiating with us. And it's very, very sad. I'm dealing with a bunch of folks here who are veterans, and they know how corporate America works. They've gone so far as to say, well, we will give your members the extra $2 an hour, but we're not going to test them. Or we'll test everybody and we won't give them the extra $2. So, of course, that's coming from the corporate standpoint, which is it's all about the dollars and cents and not about and of course, to do the right thing is to do both of those things, right? But that's how they negotiate, which is when we tell our members that that's straight up what they tell us, that's when they know what the company's priority is. The company's priority is to do as least, to do the less, the least possible and to save a few bucks, right? So that's some of the language that some of those employers out there are using when they negotiate for those extra benefits. We also are lobbying Washington. I'm sure you guys heard of the $3 trillion HEROES Act that was passed in the House earlier in May. And it really got a lot of our members' hopes up, because included in that was $200 billion that was to go towards frontline essential workers. And of course, when they called my office and they talked to me and asked me about the bill, you guys know that the Senate Republicans said it would be dead on arrival. And Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans, they wanted targeted stimulus, which whatever that means that just means that our members weren't going to get the money, right? The extra. So we were disappointed, obviously, but we tell our members that it matters who you elect in the office, and and this is the outcome. Of course, the president already threatened to veto any bill that landed on his desk, and so we didn't want to get our members' hopes up with that extra HEROES Act pay, even though it did prompt the conversation to send a second round of stimulus checks, which it's always good to put it in writing what your intentions are, have our agenda put out there, and what we would like to see happen. And then it was clearly rejected by the Senate majority and the president, and so now we know where those folks their agenda lies, right? So wanted to cover a few other things. Well, first off, does anyone have a question on what I've covered so far? I know it's a lot of information. Chris said it could be a very informal conversation that we have, but if there's any questions out there that perhaps I can answer for you, does anyone have a question right now? We can pause and field some questions.
Jason, it looks like Ivan's raised his hand. So let me just scroll. Ivan, before you ask your question, I'm just going to scroll through, see if anyone else has raised a hand. And you could raise your hand on camera too, if you don't know how to do it on the side. So I see Andy. Okay, so Ivan and Andy, and if anybody else wants to go right ahead. Ivan, you're up.
Thank you. Jason, it's really interesting. I'm really grateful that you're here to tell us about this. It's sort of what I expected, but the story is much richer and, in fact, much harsher than I actually even expected. But my question was this: are the companies making a lot of money in this context? Are the grocery companies are they making money? I mean, some people are, and I thought maybe they're making a lot of money.
Ivan, absolutely they are, and they are having to actually hire folks because of the extra volume, and so they're not experiencing any kind of a downturn in business. They are making more money than they ever have been, and so that's it needs to go back to the workers, and that's what we always advocate for. But they are able to supply the proper PPE, which is a protective equipment. They are able to give that extra $2. They are able to give the extra sick time. because they're experiencing all these things. So we never let them forget that the people who are making them the money are the people out there in the stores doing the hard work, right? So we need all those things to translate into better protections for our folks. Absolutely, they are. I will tell you that they're in the healthcare industry, though. I'm the rep for the Kaiser, and we have clinical lab scientists that do the COVID testing. So there's no shortage of work for them right now. We also have our pharmacies. Now, as you know, the way we do business is going to change, right? So if you guys are picking up your prescriptions, it's more likely now to come to you mail order or curbside pickup. So the way we do business now is changing, and our members are having to change to that new reality. So if you go to your Kaiser pharmacy, you may be just driving up and waiting for somebody to bring your prescriptions to you, or perhaps it's being mailed to your house now. So a lot of things are changing, but our priority is to always have work for our members and to make sure that there are to limit any kind of layoffs, because if you know, specifically with Kaiser, some of the medical office buildings were being shut down because no one wanted to go risk it by going to do a physical visit. So a lot of the doctor's appointments are now being done like this, like we're doing here, a Zoom meeting or FaceTime, and and so the medical office buildings were being shut down. The clinical staff were being sent to the hospital in preparation for any kind of surge. And luckily, we were very aggressive with the stay-at-home orders, and we saw that the curve really didn't get too high, and we flattened quite a bit of the uptake in the surge. But as you guys have been reading and know that it's been on an uptick as of late, perhaps because of everybody being out, perhaps because of the relaxing of the stay-at-home orders and opening up of the businesses. But I will share with you one fear that I have every day is that all these folks are now out, and they will be at some point in the grocery stores or in the drug stores or visiting where our members work. And so, like I shared with you earlier in this call, there has been an uptick in our members testing positive. Luckily not in the Claremont area, but also in the Upland and Glendora and Laverne areas. It's just, I don't see it getting any better right now. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But because of the folks out there protesting, because of the folks out there starting up their businesses again. And let's hope that everybody continues to do to be as safe as possible when they're out there.
Okay, Andy, you're up. Thanks for that, Jason.
Thank you. 3 different questions, Jason. I'll just lay them all out quickly. One is, are you finally getting tested? Are the workers getting tested on some regular basis, or what is the basis for testing? That's one question. 2 is that I'm reading that in some of the businesses, the companies that are doing the delivery of things, especially with restaurants or what have you, are really in a struggle and with the companies that are providing the food. So you have a small businessman trying to provide food. The only way they can do it is either with pickup or delivery, and the delivery companies are holding them up for a big percentage of their business. And so they're really getting hurt by the cost of the delivery. And I'm just wondering whether that sort of struggle is going on with regard to the food industry. And let me do with those 2 first, and I'll deal with the third one.
Okay. Thanks, Andy, for the question. Yeah, so in the stores, they are experiencing more of the takeout orders. Like somebody will put together their grocery, order, and then it gets delivered to their house. So Instacart and all these other third-party companies are filling that gap. But of course, we're trying to fight it so that our members are the ones that are doing the work instead of these independent contractors that are doing the work. So if you visit the Vons in Laverne, they have an in-house Vons.com where you order, and it's our members that are doing the work, and also then it gets delivered to your house. As far as the mom and pops shops that are struggling, it's it's unfortunate, and we do our best, or at least my family does our best to order, with local businesses and things like that. I know when we did our pizza deliveries, we tried to get the local pizza shops to to order from them, and et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's just going to be the new normal moving forward, And as far as our members in the stores, we always want to make sure that that's our work being performed and not by independent contractors.
Let me interrupt. So for example, with the Claremont Vaughns, who's paying the cost of the delivery? Is that your people doing the delivering, or is it a third party? And is that an additional cost, or is that's damage, that's coming out of their money, or what's the financial arrangement?
So yeah, those are third parties like Instacart, and those aren't our members. But I will tell you, like the ones we do have are the Vons.com. Those are our UFCW members. And the drivers are not yet union, but the folks that put together your order in the store, those are union members.
Okay.
So you have all those. What's that?
The testing issue.
The testing issue, yes, it's becoming more prevalent, and we can never force anybody to go get tested, but we always want to give them the resources as to where to go, right? Now, the good thing about LA County is you can get tested for free if you're not symptomatic at all. And if you're a frontline worker, even if you don't live in LA County, but let's say you work in LA County, you can go get tested at one of these sites. We know there's a few here, like in the Fairplex and Pomona, for instance, there's a testing site. You have one in West Covina, you have a CVS in San Dimas. So there are a number of sites here where everybody, if they chose to go get tested at any point, but the companies have not mandated it yet. Of course, they only send the folks, once they know that there's a positive case in their store, they'll tell the folks that are around the person who has worked to go get tested. And it also depends on when they find out the last day the person worked that was positive. Because if it's past the 14 days, they don't necessarily have to do anything different regarding the cleaning of the store. But of course, that's part of our job too. Bless you. We try to hold all these companies accountable to keep the members safe. So if I know that there's a positive case, let's say in Glendora at one of my stores, I would visit the next day to make sure that the contracted company came in and cleaned the whole entire facility, and to hold the company accountable to it, right? Because of course the members are going to call me about their benefits and what they're entitled to if they become ill. And so that's what we've been doing as these pockets have been popping up. I'll go into the store the next day. I speak with the manager. I ask them what their process is to clean the store, if they're going to shut it down, or perhaps who was around the person who was sick. Of course, we don't ever get to know who it is unless they call us and tell us themselves. But it still gets reported to the store, and then the store has to act accordingly to get those members out of harm's way and the proper treatment.
Last question. Orange County is not requiring masks. I understand San Bernardino is not requiring masks. So can the store require them? I mean, or is this a fist fight at the door? I mean, if someone comes to the door of a Vons or any one of your stores or this without a mask, and they say, no, you don't come in without a mask, can you enforce that? Or are you at the mercy of whoever wants to come in?
Unfortunately, they cannot enforce it. They can only highly recommend, right, or offer at the door. So a lot of the times if one of our members sees someone coming up, they may say, hey, sir, I noticed that you don't have a mask today. I have one to offer you, because the supply of the throwaway masks is readily available. So a lot of these stores have that. They may ask, but they cannot make them leave the premises, or they cannot make them not enter. So the whole goal is to limit the amount of exposure. So even if did
we lose Jason?
Yeah.
Looks like we lost Jason.
There he is.
Oh, you're back. All right. Jason, we
Sorry,
lost
I
you.
got a call. Yeah. The goal always is to, so it's never going to be enforceable 100%, but the goal is to limit the number of transactions you have without somebody with somebody without a mask. So I know a lot of the members get frustrated and they say, why is this law even put into place if not everybody's doing it? But it still reduces the number of exposures, statistically, right? You're less likely. It's all about limiting interactions that are dangerous, right? So if 9 out of 10 people are wearing the masks, then it's better than what it was before when 5 out of the 10 were only wearing masks. So you're always going to have those knuckleheads that don't want to wear their masks, And Mel, you got a question?
Yeah, Jason, let me jump in. Mel's on the list, then Merrill. I just want to say before Mel's question that, Jason represents these frontline workers. And if you're a union rep and you represent frontline workers, then you're a frontline worker too, right? You've got to be out there representing them. So all the union reps are taking this risk themselves. It's different in the teaching profession, I'll tell you that much. Mel, go ahead.
Actually, hey, Chris, can I interrupt real quick? I have Jason's people here that wanted to say hi. Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
Hey, it's UFCW.
Way to get out of work, okay? Way to get out of work, bro. Sorry. We're just finishing up the food distribution over here that UFCW has been a big part of, and but Jason, thanks for your work, and then also for your people's work over here. It's been really good. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
No, it was perfect timing, Sam. That was the cue for that shot.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason, or Mel. Mel, you didn't get your question out, I don't think.
It's an obvious question for a Democratic club. Thank you for your presentation, Jason. Your union and your local are really, and I've been to your union hall many times and supported the unions my entire working life. I was a manager in state government, and I regularly got a letter to my file sanctioning me because I refused to cross picket lines, but I still survived. This fall, we have a very important election both for the Senate and for the presidency, and I know you guys were very effective and sort of set the pace. I recall in the 2008 election, and when we won big in 2016 and other years, how is the election changing for the rank and file, and what does your election plan look like at UFCW writ large and at Local 1428?
Well, thanks for asking that, Mel. We are, we're involved in every fight that's out there. So I think the strategy right now, of course, we to get boots on the ground is going to be very difficult during this COVID-19 pandemic. But the overall strategy was to send all the as much help as we can to any of those battleground states, and a lot of the to fight right to work laws and to push back on any of those other things. But the strategy was to go to those battleground states and focus on them. So we're looking at all the there's a whole bunch of states in place: Michigan, Florida, Iowa, all the battleground states. So traditionally here at Local 1428, we are known for providing that extra boost with boots on the ground to go canvassing and phone banking and things like that. But that work is going to change too. I don't know how they're going to have us go out because of COVID-19, but I'm assuming more of the phone banking will be done right for local candidates, and always trying to build those relationships with the local candidates, so that way we have a strong network here And of course, I told you guys earlier that a lot of the elected officials in the area were wanted to partner with us to go into the stores and to talk to the members in the stores, to tell them that they have their back, and to propose legislation and to pass legislation that would help our members. So yeah, here we're going to continue to do that. I just don't know what capacity now, because it may be still safe to do precinct walking. You know, I'm assuming we're going to be doing that heavily like we've done in the past, because if we just partner, 2 or 3 to a car, you could still go out there and knock on doors and have that face-to-face conversation with the folks. But yeah, nationally, it's wherever the fight is. Last election cycle, we were out in Nevada, and I believe some of the Claremont Dems were with us, going to fight for the governor's office and all the statewide offices, and we were very successful there. And our efforts were greatly appreciated by the governor, and also the down the ballot candidates as well. So we'll go wherever needed, but battleground states, that's where we're focusing on, sending all of our resources, sending our folks, Wisconsin, Michigan, all those places like that. Now we have a real shot at perhaps getting Mitch McConnell's seat, right, in the Senate. Our focus is on the Senate. We need to flip the Senate. So we're going to go to the battlegrounds where the Senate could perhaps be taken, and send our folks there. The locals in the area have already, been asking for internationals' help. And of course, at 1428, we're a small local here, but we pride ourselves in able to get the manpower and the extra boots on the ground. So we'll go wherever we're called to be, and hopefully our community partners will be with us as well, because we do draw a lot of our strength from the relationships we have with the communities. So perhaps I may have an announcement to ask everyone to join us on one of our trips to one of these places. But we don't know what's going to happen with COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I think Meryl's up next, and anybody else? I'm scanning the pictures and I'm scanning the participants. So if you want to ask a question, go ahead. Meryl, you're up.
Jason, I have 2 very different questions. Somebody has noted that no billionaire has been declared an essential worker. This would seem to be a nice campaign slogan for the union, that we have the essential workers, the billionaires are not essential workers. Look who's getting paid the most. It ties in with the wealth tax and all of that sort of stuff. So has the union considering what to make out of this by way of anything like this out of the emergency? The second question is the union and the management both thinking about how things might be in the long run? I mean, right now you're having to spend all your time just dealing with the short run. I mean, are plexiglass separators going to be permanent features of retail stores, for instance?
Well, let me just address the first question regarding what we can do. And I like that saying, that no billionaire has been declared as an essential worker. That's certainly our take on things, right? Yes, we are seizing the advantage here because, let's just put it this way. Even the companies are calling their associates and their employees, and you guys have seen all the PR. Our associates are heroes, right? They're heroes. They're appreciated. They're essential. Well, what we're going to end up saying is, well, put your money where your mouth is, then, right?
Right.
So if we're heroes, and then when contract time comes around, and now we're not heroes, that's going to not go well, right? And we know that overall, the public has, we have the support of the public right now because they know the sacrifice that our members are making, having to go out there every day and putting themselves at risk. And let's be quite honest, if our food chain were to fall apart, it would be pretty much utter chaos out there, right? So these folks are holding it down for everybody. And it has to take a pandemic for everybody to realize that. And so you're right, Meryl, we have to seize the opportunity to to get our members in a better position when the contract time comes. But like I said, the employers have already called all their associates heroes and essential. And now we just are going to have to hold them to that when comes time to negotiate, right? Put your money where your mouth is, right? So that's for the first one. That's our certainly we have the same beliefs regarding, you know, being an essential employee, and the billionaires, of course, none of them are labeled as essential. The second question, can you remind me real quick what
it was about how much of the current solutions are going to likely to be permanent. Is anybody discussing that? For instance, that I use the plexiglass separators as an example.
Yeah, we foresee this as being, well, you guys have heard it already, the new normal, right? The new way of conducting business. So all these things in place, the plexiglass, the extra barriers, the hand sanitizer at every station, the extra cleaning, it's going to be for the foreseeable future as part of their job duties and part of the way they do business. It's just no way around it. And we are already hearing that perhaps in the wintertime that there may be a second round with the flu hitting as well. So, you know, it's all about what the CDC recommends and the best practices. We don't see it changing at all. But if it were to continue like this, Merrill, we'll have to, of course, try to demand more from the employers to keep everybody safe, to be on the forefront of, you know, what we would like to see, quite frankly, Merrill, is, you know, the governor's order of the presumption that you got it at work to be for the length of the pandemic, or at least until the CDC says we're in the clear. Because that would trigger just in itself the actual changes at the store levels that would keep everybody safe, because now you're incentivizing the company to keep everybody healthy, right? It's bottom line is they only care about the bottom line and the dollars. And if they can, if it's in their best interest to keep everybody healthy, then they'll end up doing it, right? And so that one presumption goes a long way in keeping our members safe. So we would like the governor to extend it. We still got work to do to try to push it beyond July, because I believe the order was just for 2 months for that presumption.
Jason, I had a question for you. Did you get any bounce from your negotiations, the contract negotiations that you had concluded? Remind me when it was. I think just several months before, right? You concluded a contract with the grocery stores. I'm just wondering if that created some sort of force or momentum that gave you leverage when the pandemic hit to help negotiate a better deal for your employees. I'm also wondering if you could say a little bit more about Upland as well too.
Okay. So unfortunately, the only contract that was going to be up in June was a Food for Less contract. And because of all this happening, both the company and the union agreed to, the members voted to extend the contract for another 8 months. So we'll be bargaining with Food for Less in 2021.
But I was referring to the contracts that had been concluded just a few months before, if I recall correctly. Am I recalling?
Yeah, those were all concluded before any of this pandemic started. But again, we were able to go to the company to get that extra pay, the extra sick time. Those were all negotiated in, you know, through side letters and side agreements. So yes, we did. I mean, obviously we were able to get all those protections for our members. So we did gain in that way. But overall, some of the other contracts, I'll just share with you, like with Kaiser, their contract is up very soon as well, but they're experiencing perhaps a drop in the number of members because, remember, people are losing their jobs now. That means they're going to lose their insurance. And now Kaiser is looking at perhaps a dip in membership, which means that they're going to be in a less desirable financial state. And when we go into bargaining, when the company's at a weakened position, especially having spent at least $2 billion on costs for COVID. We're going to be in a tough position. So there's talks of extending the contract with Kaiser, so that way we can come back to when perhaps Kaiser's in a better state. And what we're trying to avoid is any kind of layoffs, because well, let's face it, the folks aren't visiting the hospitals right now. They're not, the regular business as usual is not happening at the hospitals because COVID. So you're seeing a lot of telehealth. You're seeing a lot of everything's done virtually now. All the procedures, the elective procedures are being pushed off. And until those things start coming back online, and until Kaiser really knows how their membership will look like, it's going to be a tough bargaining session. So there's talk within our union of proposing to extend the contract until a better time. So it's both. Yes, there was gains because of COVID, but then also there's those aspects of, like Kaiser, some negatives, right?
Okay. My second question's not important. I saw that Don raised his hand. So let's have this be the last question unless I see anybody else who wants to ask a question. Okay. So Don will be the last unless someone else raises his or her hand before he's done. Go ahead, Don, you're up.
Okay. Well, the first thing I had is I wanted to, Merrill gave a suggestion for a campaign slogan, and I thought I would too. I never had any problem getting disinfectant wipes when President Obama was president, but also, there are a lot of the shelves that are empty now, and I just, they've been empty so long, I'm having a hard time believing they're from hoarding. Is it that these factories have shut down because of the virus, and that's the reason why we're not getting those items on the grocery shelves? Like tofu, I have a hard time getting tofu at times.
I can't speak for each individual product or anything like that, but in general, what they've told us is that, and when we meet with the leadership of these companies, is that it's not a shortage of supplies, but the logistical aspect of it, right? And still, we still see things that are short, like toilet paper, and it's slowly coming back. And in fact, I just saw disinfectants last week when I was in the store. So Lysol is back. Those wipes are starting to show up. The sanitizer is for sure back online. The alcohol, the rubbing alcohol, is also out there now. If you visit now, I'm sure you'll see a lot of that product. They may put limits on it, okay? But I don't know what other product you're referring to besides tofu, because I've seen just about everything back in the on the store shelves. I would say that there was a shortage for a while there of the meat products because of all those COVID positive cases in the large plants. And there was a rush on the meat for, I think that was about a month and a half ago, where there was a rush on the meat products. But again, the stores are putting limits on those things too. And they're encouraging people to just buy what they need for the week, or not to buy extra, so that other folks can still have the supply for themselves. Was there anything else that was not on the shelves for you?
Mostly cleaners, and the hand wipes, the stuff like that. But like I said, never had a problem when Barack Obama was president.
Yeah, that's true. I do want to share with you one of our priorities that we want to get done, and is that we want to make sure that if and when the rapid testing becomes available for our folks in the front lines, is that it was shared to me that the lab that is creating these rapid tests, there's a lot of false negatives, and Abbott Labs, I believe, is the one that's created the rapid testing. And what I was told was they were making at least 50,000 tests a day, but that was just for the whole country. That's not for, 50,000 sounds like a lot, but that's for the whole country. That's not nearly enough to have everybody tested the rapid test. So at least everybody has access to that swab tests, and you may get your results back 7 days later, but at least we have access to that, right? As that becomes more prevalent, we're going to ask the employers to make that available to the frontline employees. So, but again, there's problems with it. The false negatives are coming up a lot, and so there's issues with that.
So Jason, let me jump in now, and everybody, we do need to end up. So this should be our opportunity to thank Jason for addressing us and making this presentation and informing us, keeping us up to speed on the latest that's going on those front lines. So Jason, really appreciate your sharing that with us today.
Thank you, guys, and thanks for letting me talk a little about what our members are experiencing out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you and everybody in person sometime soon after November, if not earlier.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Be safe out there.
You too.
Bye now. And Sam is going to end the meeting soon, he tells me. So
Recording is yes. Thank you all. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys soon. Hopefully in person.
Take care.
Soon.
thanks for all you do, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.